Hey, what's up, everybody? True Boxing here. Thank you for coming back to Get Hit with the Truth. So today we are doing the 2023 top 10s as we are going to look at the 154-pound super welterweight division, and this is the fighters that are on the bubble. So basically the fighters that are on the verge of busting into the top 10 in 2024. Now, before we get into that, if you could smash the like button, leave a comment, or subscribe to the channel, I really do appreciate any and all support that I can get as I continue to build my channel here. So, on the bubble, what does that mean? That means, as I said, the fighters that are close to busting into the top 10, but why are they close? Well, either because they got a big name, or they're getting a big opportunity, or they have they're ranked high in one of the 4 governing bodies, which potentially could lead to a title shot. So, that's why that's the on the bubble. Now they could be one of these things, it could be 2 of these things, it could be all 3 of these things. It just depends on who it is. So in no particular order, let's get started with the on the bubble at 154 pounds. And first and foremost is unified welterweight champion Terrence Crawford. Crawford is expected to be moving up to 154 to fight Errol Spence in their rematch. And whether he wins or loses, even if he loses, I don't think it's going to be by very much. Crawford will be set at 154 in my opinion. So I believe Terrence Crawford is going to make his debut at 154 and bust into the top 10 just based on his overall resume. As one of the top 2 pound for pound fighters in the world right now. So definitely think Terrence Crawford's going to be in the top 10, in the top 5 by the end of the year. Next up is Errol Spence Jr., the former unified welterweight champion. Spence is actually ranked number 3 in the WBC right now. So he's getting love already at 154. And it's expected, as I said, that he's going to rematch Terrence Crawford at 154 pounds. Now, it's not locked into stone yet, but that is what most people are thinking is going to go down, myself included. So Errol Spence, if he looks just better, than he did the first fight against Terrence Crawford, even in defeat, I think with his overall resume, he busts into the top 10. So I do believe Errol Spence will be sitting in the top 10 at the very minimum by the end of the year. Could even be top 5. Then there's Charles Conwell, undefeated contender. He's 18-0 with 13 knockouts. He's the WBC's #1 ranked contender right now. Hasn't really beaten anybody big. He's beaten a couple decent opponents. But his biggest thing is that he is, his knockout ratio and stuff on the rise, and that he's the WBC's #1 contender. But he hasn't fought since 2022, so he's been inactive. But I think that's because he's waiting around for an eliminator of some sorts to be ordered so he can get in line for a potential title shot. Right now, Jermell Charlo's the current WBC champ. Now that he's been stripped of a couple of his belts, I think there's a chance the WBC will order a final eliminator. And if Conwell's #1, he's going to get a crack, at the very least, at a final eliminator, which could lead to a top 10 spot before the end of the year. So we'll see what happens with him. Next up is Bakram Murtazalayev, who is the IBF's #1 ranked contender. He's undefeated. Murtazalayev's been waiting around for the mandatory title shot, and now he's going to get it, as the title was stripped from Jermell Charlo late last year, and Murtazalayev is the #1 ranked contender, and he's supposed to be fighting veteran Jack Colkay next for the vacant title. And if he becomes champion, he'll likely bust into the top 10, and he could finish the year in the top 10 depending on who he gets in the ring. Because I think in the first half of the year, if he becomes the world champion, I think he's going to get opportunities, because there's other names that really want cracks, and I think he's going to want to prove himself as the top guy. So I think he'll give opportunities. So yeah, Murtazalayev, I think, definitely has a chance of busting into the top 10. Next up is Josh Kelly from the United Kingdom. He's the WBO's #1 ranked contender right now. Hasn't really done much to earn #1. Really, his biggest name was the guy he lost to, David Avanesian, and that was a couple years ago in 2021 when he got stopped. in the 6th round of that fight. Again, hasn't really done much, but he does get pushed a lot by Eddie Hearn and Matchroom. The WBO, I think, could order a mandatory fight between him and the number 2 contender at some point to get into a final eliminator. The champion right now is Tim Tszyu. Not sure how much he's into fighting a guy like Josh Kelly, but I think he'd be a heavy favorite, Tim Tszyu, and he might just take it to get a mandatory out of the way towards the middle of the year. So we'll see what happens there. Next up is Sergey Bohachuk, who's the WBC's number 2 contender. Bohachuk just trying to get in line. He's another one. If the WBC finally orders a final eliminator, I think Conwell and Bohachuk would compete for that, and then the winner could definitely bust into the top 10 potentially by the end of the year, being a mandatory challenger. So we'll see. Next is veteran Jack Kolke, former world title challenger. He's the IBF's number 2 contender, and he will be getting a crack at the vacant IBF title as long as he doesn't pull out of that fight, but I don't think he will. The title's vacant. It was stripped away from Jermell Charlo last year, and he is one of the top contenders right now, one of the top 2 contenders for it. And a victory by Kolke makes him the world champion and puts him in the top 10. And Kolke hasn't lost a fight since 2019 when he lost to Sergey Derevyanchenko. So Kolke, tough guy, veteran, been around, gonna get another crack at the world title in a win. We'll definitely put him in the top 10, and he will give opportunities in the second half of the year, in my opinion. Then next is Virgil Ortiz, the undefeated contender. Virgil Ortiz is a WBC's number 3 ranked contender already. He just debuted this past weekend and blew away Frederick Lawson in only 1 round as he stayed undefeated. So, this guy's got a lot of potential, does Virgil Ortiz. I think he's going to get opportunities. Tim Tszyu's already talking about, fighting Tim Tszyu. And Virgil Ortiz has a name and a following, and I think he's definitely going to get opportunities. And I do believe Virgil Ortiz busts into the top 10 by the end of the year, and potentially the top 5. That's how much opportunity I think Virgil Ortiz could get. Next is undefeated contender Xander Zayas, who is an exciting fighter on the rise as well. He's the WBO's number 3 contender right now, and I think he is definitely going to get at least opportunity to get into the top 10 and potentially a final eliminator. Not sure if he's going to get a title shot this year with Tim Tszyu being champion and having so many options, but I definitely think he's going to put himself in position to potentially be a mandatory challenger. So we'll see. Next up is James Metcalf from the United Kingdom. Metcalf is the WBA's number 5 contender. He's just banging around. He defeated Dennis Hogan recently. That's why he's ranked high. He suffered back-to-back losses in 2021 to really kind of lower level competition, but he came back and beat Kerman La Horaga, who is a decent contender, and that kind of put him on the move. And then he defeated Dennis Hogan last year, and that's what has him ranked kind of high. So WBA's number 5. I could see him potentially getting into some kind of a final eliminator maybe this year and getting an opportunity to bust into the top 10. Then there's Takeshi Inoue, a former world title challenger. Inoue is the WBO's number 5 contender right now. Another guy that could potentially just get some kind of final eliminator. I could see him fighting a guy like Xander Zayas next. Inoue fought Jaime Munguia, lost back, I think it was in 2019 for the title, the WBO title, and he's also lost to Tim Tszyu a couple years back. So not a bad fighter, a veteran, a former world title challenger. I can see him potentially getting an opportunity to bust in. And then finally is former WBA regular champion at welterweight, Radza Butayev. Butayev made his 154-pound debut. He's not ranked in any governing body yet, I think that's because he's still ranked at 147, and they don't really know which division he's planning on fighting at moving forward. But if he does choose 154, Butayev, in my opinion, will get opportunities. So there's a lot of guys that are on the bubble right now at 154 that could potentially, this division could completely turn over in 2024. And it's good because the division's already good. you know? So I'm really excited and seeing what happens and who fights at 154 and where it goes towards the end of the year. But I definitely think we're going to see a new transition, and it should be good. So that's it. That's what I got. That's my on the bubble for the 154-pound super welterweight division as my 2023 top 10s continue. Hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, smash the like button, leave a comment, or subscribe to the channel. I appreciate any and all support. This is True Boxing. You've been hit with the truth.